James Adair, argument 5-1. The Indian language and dialects appear to have the very idiom and genius of the Hebrew. Their words and sentences are expressive, concise, emphatical, sonorous, and bold, and often, both in letters and signification, synonymous with the Hebrew language. It is a common and old remark that there is no language in which some Hebrew words are not to be found. Probably Hebrew was the first and only language, till distance of time and place introduced a change, and then soon followed a mixture of others. The accidental position of the characters might also coincide with some Hebrew words in various dialects without the least intention. As the true pronunciation of the Hebrew characters is lost in a considerable degree, it is too difficult a task for a skillful Hebraist to ascertain a satisfactory identity of language between the Jews and American Aborigines, much more so to an Indian trader who professes but a small acquaintance with the Hebrew and that acquired by his own application. However, I will endeavor to make up the deficiency of Hebrew with a plenty of good solid Indian roots. The Indian nouns have neither cases nor declensions. They are invariably the same through both numbers after the Hebrew manner. In their verbs, they likewise sometimes use the prior perfect instead of the present tense of the indicative mood, as Blasazire, Apisar, yesterday I went and saw, and Emakoire, Apisar, now I go and see. Like the Hebrews, they have no comparative or superlative degree. They express a preference by the opposite extremes, as Chekistine, you are virtuous, Sahax, I am vicious. But it implies a comparative degree, and signifies, you are more virtuous than I am. By prefixing the adverbs, which express little and much, to the former words, it conveys the same meaning, the former of which is agreeable to the Hebrew idiom. And a double repetition of the same adjective makes a superlative, according to the Hebrew manner, as law, most, or very many. To add ha to the end of an adjective, unless it is a noun of multitude like the former, makes it also a superlative, as hax to ha, they are most, or very wicked. Hax signifies vicious. Probably when the vicious part of the Israelites were under the hand of the corrector, the judge repeated that word. Ta is a note of plurality, and ha an Hebrew accent of admiration, which makes it a superlative. To join the name of God, or the leading vowel of the mysterious, great, divine name, to the end of a noun, likewise implies a superlative, as haxisto, or haxo, he or she is very wicked. The former method of speech exactly agrees with the Hebrew idiom, as the original text shows, in innumerable instances. When the Hebrews compare two things, and would signify a parity between them, they double the particle of resemblance, I am as thou art, and my people as thy people, and the Indians, on account of that original defective standard of speech, are forced to use the like circumlocution, as Cheahoba Esae, I am like you, and Saatuk Chahatuktua, for Hatuk signifies people, and the S expresses the pronoun my, or mine, and it likewise changes an active into a passive verb. Although this Indian and Hebrew method of speech is rather tedious and defective, yet, at the same time, they who attain any tolerable skill in the dialects of the one and language of the other will discover the sense plain enough when a comparison is implied. There is not, perhaps, any one language or speech, except the Hebrew and the Indian American, which has not a great many prepositions. The Indians, like the Hebrews, have none in separate and express words. They are forced to join certain characters to words in order to supply that great defect. The Hebrew consonants, called servals, were tools to supply the place of the prepositions. The Indians, for want of a sufficient number of radical words, are forced to apply the same noun and verb to signify many things of a various nature. With the Chirake, ink signifies a prisoner, captive, slave, awl, pen, needle, which occasions the Indian dialects to be very difficult to strangers. The Jewish rabbins tell us that the Hebrew language contains only a few more than 1,000 primitive words, of which their whole language is formed. So that the same word very often denotes various, though not contrary things. But there is one radical meaning, which will agree to every sense that word is used in. By custom, a Hebrew noun frequently supplied the place of a pronoun, by which means it caused a tedious and sometimes an ambiguous circumlocution. From this original defective standard of speech, the Indians have forgotten all their pronouns, except two primitives and two relatives, as Anoa, ego, and Ishna, two. The latter bears a great many significations, both as singular and plural, viz. Ipa and Iko, which signify he, she, this, that, and they are likewise adverbs of place, as here, there. Hua signifies he or she, aniwi, and Anao, he, she, him, her. The Hebrew language frequently uses hyperboles, or magnifying numbers, to denote a long space of time. The Indians, accordingly, apply the words Netakakruha, all days, or, in other words, forever, to a long series of years. With the Jews, sitting signified dwelling, and, with the Indians, it is the very same. For, when they ask a person where he dwells, they say, Katamakish Benil, Shwak, which is literally where do you sit? And when they call us irreligious, they say Nana Ubat, no thing, or literally, a relation to nothing, for Nana signifies a relation, and the other is always a negative adverbial period, which seems also to proceed from a religious custom of the Hebrews, in giving despicable borrowed names to idols, as to Baalim, particles of air, meaning nothing. To which the psalmist alludes, saying, I will not take up their names in my lips. NST. Paul says, we know that an idol is nothing. This expression the Indians apply, in a pointed metaphor, to the white people, but never to each other. Like the Hebrews, they seldom, if ever, double the liquid consonant R, for they generally seem desirous of shuffling over it, at any rate, and they often give it the sound of L. But, if it precedes a word, where the other consonant soon follows, they always give it its proper sound, contrary to the usage of the Chinese. As the name of a stone, they often call Tal instead of Tar, but the Indians say Tarlakana, literally, yellow stone, gold. The Hebrews subjoined one of their servals to words to express the pronoun relative, thy or thine, and as that particle was also a note of resemblance, it shews the great sterility of that language. As a specimen, they said, Abish, your father, and Amich, your mother, only that the Hebrew period is initial. In such a case, to the Indian nouns, they always use the very same method of expression. This I shall illustrate with two words in the dialects of the Chicasa and Chirake, as Chinj and Katakta, your father, Angi and Akatoda signifying my father, in resemblance of Abba, of the same import, likewise Chishka and Chachia, your mother, for Sask and Akachi signify my mother, in imitation of Ash. Also Sas Kish signifies Podex Meus, Shaish Kish, Podex Tus, and Kish Kish, Podex Ilias, which I guess to be an opprobrious allusion to Kish the father of Saul, for the sons assuming the throne at the end of the Jewish theocracy. In their adjectives and verbs, they use the same method of speech, as Nauriso Chinchukoma, your book is good. The former word is compounded of na, now, or the present time, and huriso, delineated, marked, or painted. Aia signifies to go, and mayacha, go along, or maya, the same, for, by prefixing to it, it implies a requisite obedience. In like manner, apisa, to see, and pisacha, look, or see you. And, when that particle is prefixed to a verb, it always expresses the accusative case of the same pronoun, as shapizer, I saw you, and chepieseres, I shall see you. Each of the Hebrew characters are radicals, although half of them are servals, according to that proper term of the scholiasts, for, when they are prefixed, inserted, or subjoined, either at the beginning, middle, or end of a radical word, they serve to form its various augments, inflections, and derivatives. According to this difficult standard of speech, the Indian nouns, moods, and tenses are variously formed to express different things. As there is no other known language or dialect which has the same tedious, narrow, and difficult principles, must we not consider them to be twin-born sisters? The one of proper skill to observe the original fixed idea of the Indian words, their radical letters, and the due sounds in each of them, seems to have been the only reason why the writers on the American Aborigines have not exhibited the true and genuine properties of any one of their dialects, as they are all uniform in principle, so far at least, as an extensive acquaintance reaches. The Hebrew nouns are either derived from verbs, or both of them are one and the same, as barosh, blessing, from barak, to bless, and daber daber, he spoke the speech. This proper name signifies loquacious, like the Indian sekaki, signifying the grasshopper. The Indian method of expression exactly agrees with that Hebrew mode of speech, for they say an James Adair, argument 5-2. As the Hebrew word, na, signifies the present time, so when the Indians desire a person to receive something from them speedily, they say, na, short and gutturally, iska, take it, now. He replies unta, or ome, which are good-natured affirmatives. The pronoun relative, you, which they term ishna, is a compounded Hebrew word, signifying, by application, the person present, or you. With the Hebrews, hara hara signifies most, or very, hot. The repetition of the word makes it a superlative. In a strict resemblance of that word, and mode of speech, when an Indian is baffled by any of their humorous wits, he says, in a loud jesting manner, hara hara, or hala hala, according to their capacity of pronouncing the liquid R, and it signifies, you are very hot upon me. Their word, which expresses sharp, conveys the idea of bitter-heartedness with them, and that of bitterness they apply only to the objects of taste. With the Chirake, Chicasa, and Choctaw Indians, Nan signifies a hill, and Nana, with the two last-mentioned nations, a fish, and Unchaba, a mountain. But they call an alligator, or crocodile, Nanachunchaba, literally, the fish like a mountain, which the English language would abbreviate into the name of a mountain fish. But, instead of a hyphen, they use the Hebrew, a note of resemblance, which seems to point at the language from which they derived it. In like manner, A signifies to walk, and eat, wood, but eat chana, any kind of wheel, which is consonant to the aforesaid Hebrew idiom, with many others of the like nature, but a specimen of this sort must suffice.